What is going on, Kane Sport? Azubi Charles joined by Steven Wagner, and we have some breaking news here on this Thursday afternoon. 2027 defensive back Kenton Dopson III has committed to the Miami Hurricanes. And yes, I said 2027, but he is a prospect that a lot of people will start to get to know in the coming months. He is one of the best defensive backs, not only in South Florida, but the entire nation out of Miami, Norland. Steven, this kid has five-star potential written all over him and a huge, huge win for the Miami Hurricanes in the 2027 class as they add their second prospect in that group. What are your initial thoughts on the Canes letting Kenton Dopson?
Yeah, it's pretty rare that we get excited for a kid committing, one full cycle ahead. Obviously we're focused on 2026 now, and Kent Dobson being a 2027, not a lot of fans have probably turned a ton of attention to the 2027 class, but I absolutely believe this is a kid worth getting excited over. This is a really big deal for Miami. Some fans may not know him just because right now I think Rivals is the only major database that has, fully ranked the 2027 class, but I think that Kent Dobson is an absolute baller. I think this kid is going to be a five-star candidate in the future. He will absolutely be a bona fide blue chip top 100 player. We've both watched him play before. He is a stud at cornerback. I think he's going to be one of the 4 or 5 best corners in the country by the time that his class is fully evaluated. I think this is a really, really big deal for Miami. It would not stun me if by the time the 2027 class rolls around that Kent Dobson is actually one of the top, 3, maybe, 4 recruits that Miami signs in that 2027 class, assuming that he signs. There've been heard a couple of rumors here and there about him possibly reclassifying up to 2026. Absolutely nothing confirmed. This was just kind of rumors that we've heard that we've heard here and there. But assuming that he is a member of the 2027 class, man, this kid is going to have an opportunity to be an incredibly highly ranked prospect and a possible gem of Miami's class.
Yeah, Ken Dopson is a guy that, Steve and I have been watching the last 2 years at Miami Norland. And it's very, surprising to see such a young kid make such a big impact on a team like Miami Norland. Obviously, a state contender year in and year out. And he's always tasked with guarding every opponent's best defender and, holds his own and even gets the best of a lot of these guys. I remember earlier last year when Miami Norland played Tampa Armwood, he was tasked with following around, 4-star Georgia signee Tyler Williams and held him in check, for most of the game. He's just a guy that is absolutely a physical specimen for his age. If you see him, you'd probably think he's maybe a senior, maybe heading into college. Around 6'2", almost 200 pounds. Moves really well, real fluid hips, really aggressive at the line too. Can get up on a guy in man coverage, and a guy that plays for SFE as well, South Florida Express. So plays against top level competition in the 7-on-7 circuit, and a lot of people love what they see from Kenton Dopson. And he's been a guy, obviously he's a 2027 guy, but we've covered extensively at Kane Sport. Have an article about him from his visit last weekend, his other visits when he first met, some of Miami's new defensive staff, and kind of wanted to get into that, Steve. And Coach Zach Etheridge being, that guy that's been recruiting him. Just talk about the impact he's had in just a short amount of time on getting Ken to commit to the Canes.
Man, Zach Etheridge has wasted absolutely no time since coming over from Houston. He definitely played a factor in getting Jalen Waters to commit to the Hurricanes. He absolutely played a role in getting Kent Dobson to commit to Miami. Obviously was the primary recruiter there. Dobson came down to Miami a couple of weeks ago. That visit went extremely well. Etheridge has really developed a tight relationship with a bunch of really high-end premier defensive backs. And, quite frankly, that's what Zach Etheridge and Will Harris were brought to Miami to do. Last year, I think especially was a cycle where a lot of people felt kind of disappointed by the overall defensive back haul that Miami brought in. Even though they did get some players that they wanted, they missed on a lot of really, really top-end prospects that they were really hoping to score with in a class where they needed to address defensive backs. Miami wanted to get better at DB recruiting, and so far they absolutely have. I mean, it's safe to say Miami DB recruiting is hot right now. I mean, we've got 2 commitments in 2 weeks between Jalen Waters in 2026 and Kent Dobson now in 2027. Miami's hire is paying off early right now. The Hurricanes definitely have a little bit of momentum.
And then you mentioned, Zach Etheridge coming in from Houston, wasting no time. I had the chance to speak with, Kent Dobson's father as well, kind of talking about how a coach from Houston that wasn't really familiar with Miami came in and made such a strong impact. And he said, I like how he came in from day one and established a relationship with my family and my son. He let Kenton know he was a huge priority from day one. So Zach Etheridge, right when he came to Miami, hit the ground running and made a huge push for Ken Dopson and ended up ultimately landing that commitment. And another thing too that I want to add on this is a kid that every time you speak with him, he said, "Hey, Miami's in my blood. I grew up a Hurricanes fan. This is something that my entire family loves." And even after practice, I overheard him talking to another top 2027 commit. He's like, "Man, we look good in that orange and green." And to see that kind of come full circle for him, very happy for him and his family to kind of fulfill that moment and become a Miami Hurricane. So, Stephen, before we close out, there's just any final thoughts on Kenton Dobson and Miami landing one of the best prospects in the 2027 class?
Baller, baller, baller. This is a big deal. I know he's just a 2027, but man, if you're a Miami fan, you really need to be stoked about this. He will, I absolutely promise you, he will be a premier player in his recruiting cycle. He absolutely is someone who's worth getting excited about.
Sure. Well, make sure to check out all of our coverage on Miami's latest 2027 commit at canesport.com. And if you like this video, leave a big thumbs up and we'll have a ton of more content talking about Canes recruiting, football, basketball, baseball, and everything in between throughout the spring into the summer. So for Stephen Wagner, I'm Azubi Charles. Thank you all for watching.